The busy halls of Atlanta General Hospital were filled with the usual morning rush as Keisha Taylor hurried through her rounds. At 32 years old, she had already established herself as one of the most respected nurses in the rehabilitation ward. Her bright smile and gentle touch made patients feel at ease, even on their worst days. That Wednesday morning seemed like any other until Keisha checked her patient list. A new name appeared: James Richardson, age 34, scheduled for a routine checkup. What caught her attention wasn't the name itself, but the special note attached to his file requesting assistance with transfer from wheelchair to examination table. As Keisha entered room 205, she found a man sitting in his wheelchair, dressed sharply in a blue button-down shirt and black slacks. Despite being confined to the wheelchair, James sat with an air of confidence that immediately caught her attention. His warm brown eyes lit up as she walked in, and he flashed a smile that made the room feel a little brighter. "Good morning, Mr. Richardson," Keisha said, picking up his chart. "I'm Nurse Taylor, but you can call me Keisha." "Please call me James," he replied, his voice carrying a gentle strength that didn't match the physical limitations of his body. "And thank you for helping me today." As Keisha began the routine checkup, she learned that James had been paralyzed from the waist down since a car accident when he was 12. But what struck her most wasn't his disability, was how he talked about his life with such enthusiasm and optimism. "I run an IT consulting company," he explained while she checked his blood pressure. "Started it from my bedroom 5 years ago. Now I have a small team working with me." Keisha found herself genuinely interested in his story. Unlike many patients who focused on their limitations, James spoke about possibilities. He shared stories about his recent projects, his love for technology, and his dreams of creating solutions for people with disabilities. "The wheelchair?" he said, patting the armrest. "It's just my way of moving around. It doesn't define what I can achieve." During the examination, Keisha noticed how James used humor to ease any awkward moments. When she helped him onto the examination table, he joked, "Well, this is one way to sweep a lady off her feet." His laughter was infectious, and Keisha couldn't help but join in. The standard 30-minute checkup stretched to 45 minutes as they found themselves engrossed in conversation. James asked about her journey into nursing, and Keisha shared her dream of someday opening a specialized care facility for underprivileged patients. "That's amazing," James said, his eyes showing genuine interest. "The world needs more people who care about making a difference." As Keisha helped him back into his wheelchair, she noticed a small laptop bag hanging from the back. "Always working?" she asked. "Always creating," he corrected with a smile. "Life's too short to waste time feeling sorry for yourself." Before leaving, James hesitated for a moment. "I know this might be unprofessional," he started, "but would you like to get coffee sometime? Just to talk more about your ideas for that care facility?" Keisha felt her heart skip a beat. Hospital policy discouraged personal relationships with patients, but something about James felt different. He wasn't just another patient. He was someone who saw the world with the same hope and determination that she did. "I'd like that," she found herself saying, surprising even herself. "But you'll have to sign these discharge papers first." James laughed, signing the papers with a flourish. "Now I'm officially not a patient anymore." As she watched him skillfully maneuver his wheelchair out of the room, Keisha felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time: the excitement of meeting someone who could change her life. Little did she know, this routine medical checkup would lead to the most extraordinary journey of her life. That evening, as Keisha finished her shift, she found a small note at the nurse's station. It read, "Coffee at Hope's Cafe, Saturday at 10 a.m. James, followed by his phone number. She smiled, carefully folding the note and placing it in her pocket, knowing that sometimes the best stories begin in the most unexpected ways. Saturday morning arrived with bright sunshine, and Keisha found herself standing outside Hope's Cafe 15 minutes early. She had changed her outfit 3 times before settling on a simple yellow sundress. As she waited, she noticed how her hands felt slightly shaky, something that never happened during her steady-handed work at the hospital. James arrived right on time, expertly guiding his wheelchair through the cafe's entrance. He wore a crisp white shirt that made him look even more handsome than she remembered. The sight of his confident smile made her nervousness melt away. "You look beautiful," James said, his eyes twinkling. "Yellow suits you." Inside the cafe, they found a corner table where James could easily position his wheelchair. The waitress knew him by name, suggesting he was a regular customer. "The usual, James?" she asked, and he nodded before turning to Keisha. "They make the best blueberry muffins here." As they shared coffee and muffins, their conversation flowed naturally. James told her about growing up in Atlanta, about his parents who never let his disability define him, and about his passion for computer programming that started in high school. Keisha shared stories about her large family, her journey through nursing school, and her dream of helping others. However, their peaceful morning was interrupted when Keisha noticed some people staring at them. She saw their questioning looks and whispered comments. Before she could feel uncomfortable, James reached across the table and gently touched her hand. "You know what I love about coffee shops?" he asked, speaking loudly enough for others to hear. "You can always tell who the real people are. They're the ones who see hearts, not colors or wheelchairs." His words made Keisha smile, and she realized she hadn't even thought about what others might think. With James, everything felt natural and right. After coffee, James suggested they take a roll through the nearby park. The weather was perfect, and Keisha walked beside his wheelchair, amazed at how he could point out the beauty in everything, from the way sunlight filtered through leaves to the sound of children laughing at the playground. "My mama always asks me when I'm going to settle down," Keisha admitted as they paused near a fountain. "She worries I work too much." "And what do you tell her?" James asked, looking up at her with genuine interest. "That I'm waiting for someone special," she replied, "someone who understands me." Their first date turned into a second, and then a third. Each time they met, Keisha discovered something new about James that made her admire him more. He never complained about his disability, instead focusing on all the things he could do. He showed her videos of his wheelchair basketball games and talked excitedly about his latest computer projects. But not everyone understood their growing relationship. One evening, Keisha's best friend Lisa pulled her aside at work. "Girl, are you sure about this?" Lisa asked with concern. "Dating someone in a wheelchair, it won't be easy. Think about the future." Keisha thought about James's laugh, his brilliant mind, and his kind heart. "Love isn't supposed to be easy," she replied. "It's supposed to be worth it." When James met Keisha's family for Sunday dinner 3 months later, her younger siblings were fascinated by his electric wheelchair. Her father, usually quiet and reserved, spent hours talking with James about technology and business. But it was Keisha's mother who surprised everyone. After dinner, Mama pulled Keisha into the kitchen. "That man looks at you like you hung the moon," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "And I see the way you look at him, too. Sometimes the best blessings come in unexpected packages." As their relationship grew stronger, Keisha and James created their own way of doing things. He taught her about adaptive technology, and she learned the best ways to assist him when needed. But most importantly, they learned to face the world's stares and whispers together, their love growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as they watched the sunset from his apartment balcony, James turned to Keisha and said, "You know, some people think I'm the one who's blessed to have found you, but they don't realize that every day I try to be worthy of the love you give so freely." Keisha smiled, knowing in her heart that she had found something rare and precious, a love that saw beyond physical limitations to the beauty of the soul within. After 6 months of dating, James knew in his heart that Keisha was the one. He spent weeks planning the perfect proposal, wanting to make it as special as she was. The park where they had their first walk together seemed like the perfect location, but James had bigger plans than just a simple question. One Thursday evening, James called Keisha at the hospital. "Can you meet me at sunset in Central Park tomorrow, near our favorite bench?" His voice carried a hint of excitement that made Keisha curious. "Is everything okay?" she asked, checking her schedule. "Everything's perfect," James replied. "Just trust me." The next day, Keisha arrived at the park wearing her favorite blue dress. As she walked toward their usual spot, she noticed something different. Small white lights had been strung through the trees, twinkling like stars even though the sun hadn't fully set. Then she saw James waiting by the bench, looking handsome in a dark suit. His wheelchair had been decorated with tiny lights that matched the ones in the trees. Behind him stood both their families, trying to hide behind trees but doing a poor job of it. Keisha's mother was already wiping tears from her eyes. "What's all this?" Keisha asked, her heart beating faster as she approached. James smiled and took her hand. "Remember the first time we came here? You told me about your dreams. and I told you about mine. That day, I realized something important. He pulled out a small remote from his pocket and pressed a button. Suddenly, music started playing softly from hidden speakers. It was At Last by Etta James, the song they had danced to on their third date, with Keisha sitting in his lap as he moved his wheelchair in gentle circles. Keisha Taylor, James continued, his voice strong despite his obvious nervousness, you never once saw my wheelchair as a barrier. You saw me. Just me. You listened to my dreams and shared yours. You showed me that love doesn't see limitations, it sees possibilities. James reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it, revealing a beautiful diamond ring. I may not be able to get down on one knee, he said with a gentle laugh, but I can promise you my whole heart. Tears began rolling down Keisha's cheeks as James continued. I promise to be your partner in everything, to support your dreams like you've supported mine, to face whatever challenges life brings us together. From behind the trees, Keisha could hear her mother sniffling and her younger sisters trying to shush her. The scene made her smile through her tears. Keisha Taylor, will you marry me? James asked, holding up the ring. Will you be my wife, my best friend, and my partner in all of life's adventures? Before Keisha could answer, James pressed another button on his remote. Suddenly, the fountain behind them lit up with colored lights, and music grew slightly louder. Their families emerged from their hiding spots, all holding small signs that spelled out, "Say yes." Keisha laughed through her tears. You planned all this? With a little help, James admitted, nodding toward their families. Your sister picked the lights, your mom chose the music, and my dad helped set everything up. But the question is all mine, and I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Keisha knelt down beside James's wheelchair, bringing herself to eye level with him. Yes, she said softly, then louder, yes, yes, yes. As James slipped the ring onto her finger, their families burst into cheers and applause. Keisha's mother rushed forward to hug them both, crying happy tears. James's parents followed, his father patting him proudly on the back while his mother hugged Keisha. Welcome to the family, daughter, James's mother whispered in Keisha's ear. As the family celebrated around them, James pulled Keisha close. I promise you'll never regret this, he said softly. I know I won't, Keisha replied, looking at her ring, because I've never been more sure of anything either. That evening, as their family celebrated at a nearby restaurant, Keisha and James sat close together, planning their future. Neither of them knew about the incredible surprises that lay ahead, but in that moment, they had everything they needed, each other, their family's blessing, and a love that promised to overcome any obstacle life might put in their path. The spring wedding was everything Keisha and James had dreamed of. They chose a beautiful garden venue that was fully wheelchair accessible, with smooth paths and ramps hidden elegantly among the flowers. Keisha walked down the aisle in a stunning white dress while James waited for her at the altar, looking handsome in his black tuxedo, his wheelchair decorated with white roses and ribbons. You look like an angel, James whispered when she reached him, making Keisha's eyes fill with happy tears. During the ceremony, they had special moments that made their wedding unique. Instead of the traditional walk around the altar, they had planned something different. Keisha sat on James's lap, and he guided his wheelchair in a circle while their favorite song played softly. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. When it came time for their vows, James spoke first. Keisha, people say love is blind. But our love isn't blind. It sees everything clearly and loves anyway. I promise to be not just your husband, but your partner in every way possible. Where I can't walk beside you, I'll roll beside you, and together we'll find our way. Keisha's voice shook with emotion as she said her vows. James, you taught me that love isn't about what a person can or cannot do. It's about how they make you feel, how they support your dreams, and how they choose you every single day. I choose you, today and always. The reception was filled with joy and laughter. They had their first dance with Keisha sitting on James's lap as he skillfully moved his wheelchair in time with the music. Their families and friends watched in awe as the couple moved together perfectly, showing everyone that love knows no boundaries. After the wedding, they moved into their new apartment. The first few weeks of marriage brought both joy and challenges as they adjusted to living together. They had to arrange the furniture to create wide paths for James's wheelchair, and Keisha learned to keep things at a height he could easily reach. One morning, Keisha woke up to find James already awake, working on his laptop. "What are you doing up so early?" she asked, bringing him coffee. "Just some work stuff," he replied with a mysterious smile. "You know how it is with running a business." Their daily routine became a beautiful dance of cooperation. In the mornings, Keisha would help James with his exercises, something his doctors said was important. Then they would have breakfast together before she left for her nursing shift at the hospital. James proved to be full of surprises. Despite his disability, he insisted on doing his share of the housework. He had modified cleaning tools that attached to his wheelchair, and he often had dinner ready when Keisha came home tired from her shifts. "How did I get so lucky?" Keisha asked one evening, finding a candlelit dinner waiting for her. "I ask myself the same question every day," James replied, pulling her onto his lap for a kiss. Their families visited often, and Keisha's mother was especially pleased to see how well they worked together. One Sunday, she pulled Keisha aside while James and her father watched a football game. "You know, baby," she said, "when you first told me about James, I was worried. Not because of his wheelchair, but because marriage is hard enough without extra challenges. But watching you two, you make it look easy." "It's not always easy, Mama," Keisha admitted, "but it's always worth it." As their first month of marriage turned into 2, then 3, Keisha noticed James spending more time on his computer. Sometimes he would be up late, talking quietly on the phone, quickly ending calls when she entered the room. When she asked about it, he would just smile and say, "You'll see." What Keisha didn't know was that James was working on something big, something that would change both their lives forever. But for now, she was happy with their life together, their love growing stronger each day as they faced life's challenges as a team. One evening, as they sat on their balcony watching the sunset, James held Keisha's hand and said, "You know what the best part of being married is? Knowing that every day, I get to wake up next to someone who sees me for who I am, not what I can't do." Keisha squeezed his hand, not knowing that their biggest adventure was still to come. 4 months into their marriage, Keisha began noticing small changes in James's behavior. He was spending more and more time in his home office, often working late into the night. The soft tapping of his keyboard became a familiar sound in their apartment, but whenever she would peek in, he would quickly minimize windows on his computer screen. One evening, while James was in the shower, his phone kept buzzing with messages. Keisha didn't mean to look, but she caught glimpses of words like investment and major contract on the screen notifications. When she asked him about it over dinner, James just smiled mysteriously. "Trust me, honey," he said, reaching for her hand. "Everything will make sense soon." Late one night, unable to sleep, Keisha found James still working in his office. This time, he was so focused he didn't hear her approach. On his computer screen, she saw complex lines of code and what looked like designs for some kind of app. The title at the top read, "Access Life, Making Independence Possible." "James," she called softly, making him jump slightly. "What is all this?" James looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. "I guess it's time I showed you what I've been working on." He gestured for her to come closer. "Remember how I told you I run a small company?" He began, pulling up several files on his computer. "Well, that was true, but it's not so small anymore. For the past year, I've been developing software to help people with disabilities live more independently." He showed her the program he was working on. It was an app that could control home appliances, manage medical schedules, and even help wheelchair users navigate the safest routes in any city. But what really caught Keisha's attention were the testimonials from beta testers, people whose lives had been changed by James's software. "This is amazing," she whispered, reading through the comments. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted to be sure it would work," James explained. "I've seen too many people promise solutions for the disabled community that never deliver. I needed to know this was real before I shared it." Just then, James's phone rang. Despite the late hour, he answered it, putting it on speaker. "Mr. Richardson," a voice said, "we've reviewed your proposal. The board is impressed. We'd like to move forward with the investment." After ending the call, James turned to Keisha with tears in his eyes. That was one of the biggest tech investment firms in the country. They want to help launch Access Life nationwide. Keisha knelt beside his wheelchair, taking his hands in hers. "James, this is incredible, but why keep it secret from me?" "Because," he said softly, "I wanted to prove that I could do more than just dream. I wanted to show you that marrying me wasn't just about taking care of a disabled man. was about building a future together. "Oh, honey," Keisha replied, wiping away his tears, "I never needed proof. I married you because of your heart, your mind, and your spirit." Over the next few weeks, Keisha watched with pride as James's company grew. He hired more developers, including several people with disabilities who could work remotely. His dedication to creating opportunities for others touched her heart deeply. One day, while organizing their home office, Keisha found a journal where James had been sketching his ideas. On one page, she found a list titled Dreams for Us. It included things like build a fully accessible dream home, start a foundation for disability rights, and help Keisha open her care facility. When James found her crying over the journal, he pulled her onto his lap. "Those aren't just dreams anymore," he said. "They're becoming plans." "You're planning all this for us?" she asked, touched by his thoughtfulness. "For us, and for others like me," he replied. "You showed me that love has no limitations. Now, I want to show the world that disability doesn't mean inability." What Keisha didn't know was that James's success was growing faster than he let on. His company was already worth millions, but he was waiting for the perfect moment to reveal everything. As their first anniversary approached, he was planning something that would change both their lives forever. That night, as they lay in bed, James held Keisha close and whispered, "Thank you for believing in me, even when you didn't know what I was working on." "I'll always believe in you," she replied, not knowing that the biggest surprise was still to come. As spring turned to summer, James's company, Access Life, began growing faster than anyone expected. While Keisha continued her nursing work at the hospital, she noticed more and more signs of her husband's rising success, though James tried to keep things low-key. One morning, while Keisha was getting ready for her shift, a sleek black car pulled up outside their apartment. A man in a business suit stepped out and opened the door for James. "Your new accessible transport service, Mr. Richardson," the driver said politely. "James?" Keisha asked, surprised. "What's this about?" "Just making things easier for business meetings," James replied casually, though his eyes sparkled with secret excitement. "Don't worry about the cost, honey. The company is doing well." At work, Keisha overheard two nurses talking about a new app that was making headlines in the disability community. "It's revolutionary," one nurse said, showing her phone to the other. "Makes life so much easier for patients with mobility issues." Keisha smiled to herself, knowing her husband was behind it all, but kept quiet about being married to the creator. James had asked her to let him handle the public announcements in his own time. One evening, when Keisha came home from her shift, she found James talking to someone on a video call. She caught words like $1 million contract and international expansion before he quickly ended the call. "Was that another business meeting?" she asked, kissing him hello. "Just some investors," James said, pulling her onto his lap. "But enough about work. How was your day?" But Keisha had noticed something on his computer screen, a blueprint for what looked like a large building. "James, what was that?" James hesitated, then rolled his wheelchair back to the computer. "Remember your dream about opening a care facility?" he asked, pulling up the blueprint. "I've been working with architects to design one." "Just planning for the future." The blueprints showed a beautiful modern building, fully accessible, with state-of-the-art medical facilities and comfortable living spaces. "This is exactly how I'd always imagined it," Keisha whispered, touched by his thoughtfulness. "I know," James smiled. "I've been taking notes every time you talked about your dreams." That weekend, they visited James's parents for Sunday dinner. His father pulled him aside, thinking Keisha couldn't hear their conversation in the kitchen. "Son, when are you going to tell her?" his father asked. "About everything?" "Soon, Dad," James replied. "I want it to be perfect. She deserves nothing less." Back at home, signs of their changing life continued to appear. New adaptive equipment arrived at their apartment, making things even easier for James. Their neighbors started treating them differently after seeing James's story in a local business magazine, though the article didn't mention the full scope of his success. One day, Keisha found a stack of papers in James's office while cleaning. They were letters from people whose lives had been changed by Access Life's technology. One woman wrote about how she could finally live independently. A young boy thanked James for making it possible for him to control his home's lights and TV from his wheelchair. That evening, Keisha hugged James tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "You're changing lives." "I learned from the best," he replied, wiping a tear from her cheek. "You showed me that helping others is the greatest success of all." As their first anniversary approached, James seemed to be getting more phone calls than ever. Sometimes he would wheel himself onto the balcony to take them, speaking in hushed tones. Other times, he would be up late at night, working on his laptop with a determined look on his face. What Keisha didn't know was that Access Life had become more successful than she could imagine. James had not only created life-changing technology, but had built a multi-million-dollar company. He was working with international investors, planning global expansion, and setting up a foundation to help people with disabilities. One night, as they watched TV together, a news story came on about innovative technology companies. James quickly changed the channel before they mentioned Access Life. "You know," Keisha said, snuggling closer to him, "sometimes I feel like you're keeping some big secret from me." James kissed her forehead and smiled mysteriously. "Just wait until our anniversary, my love. Some secrets are worth keeping when they lead to something wonderful." Little did Keisha know, James was planning a surprise that would exceed her wildest dreams. With just 2 weeks left until their first wedding anniversary, James went into full preparation mode. Every day, when Keisha left for her nursing shift, he would start making secret phone calls and holding mysterious meetings. One morning, Keisha noticed James writing something in a small black notebook. She caught glimpses of what looked like a schedule with times and locations, but he quickly closed it when she came near. "Planning something?" she asked playfully. "Maybe," James replied with a wink. "You know, anniversaries are special." Later that week, Keisha was surprised to see James's parents' car outside their apartment when she came home early from work. As she approached the door, she heard hushed voices inside. "The house papers are ready," she heard James's father say. "Everything's set up just like you wanted." "Perfect," James replied. "And the foundation documents?" The voices went quiet when Keisha opened the door. James's parents quickly said they were just visiting, but their excited smiles told a different story. Strange things kept happening as the days passed. One afternoon, Keisha found a business card from a real estate agent in James's wheelchair cushion. When she asked about it, he said it must have fallen from someone's papers at a meeting. "You're not planning to move us, are you?" she asked, half joking. "Honey, with you, I'd live anywhere," he answered smoothly, changing the subject. The next day at the hospital, Keisha's supervisor called her into the office. "Someone requested you take next Thursday off," the supervisor said with a knowing smile. "It's already been approved." "But I didn't request," Keisha started. "Your husband called," he was very persuasive. That evening, Keisha found James on the phone again, speaking quietly on the balcony. "Yes, the medical equipment needs to be delivered next week," she heard him say. "Everything must be perfect." When she asked about the call, James just smiled and said, "Anniversary preparations, my love. Don't worry about it." A few days later, Keisha's mother stopped by unexpectedly. She helped Keisha look through her closet, insisting she needed to find the perfect outfit for their anniversary. "Mama, what do you know that I don't?" Keisha asked suspiciously. Her mother just patted her hand. "Baby, some surprises are worth waiting for. Just trust your husband." The weekend before their anniversary, James was busier than ever. He kept receiving text messages that made him smile, and his laptop was filled with files he wouldn't let Keisha see. On Monday, a fancy envelope arrived addressed to both of them. Inside was an invitation to what looked like a business event, scheduled for their anniversary evening. "A business meeting on our anniversary?" Keisha asked, trying not to sound disappointed. "Trust me," James said, squeezing her hand. "Everything happens for a reason." 3 days before their anniversary, a mysterious package arrived. James quickly wheeled himself to the door to intercept it before Keisha could see what it was. That same evening, while making dinner, Keisha overheard James on the phone. "Yes, the press release is ready, but nobody releases anything until after Thursday night." The night before their anniversary, James seemed both nervous and excited. He kept checking his phone and mumbling to himself about times and schedules. "Are you okay?" Keisha asked as they got ready for bed. "Never better," he replied, pulling her close. "Just thinking about how lucky I am to have you in my life." As Keisha fell asleep that night, she noticed James was still awake, typing on his phone. She had no idea that in less than 24 hours, her life would change forever. In their bedroom closet, hidden behind some boxes, lay a new dress James had specially ordered. In his office safe, there were documents that would reveal the true extent of his success. And somewhere in the city, a building stood ready, waiting to fulfill Keisha's biggest dream. That night, as Keisha slept peacefully, James lay awake, reviewing his plans one last time. Tomorrow would be more than just their first anniversary. It would be the day he showed his wife that love, determination, and hard work could make any dream come true. "Sleep well, my love," he whispered, watching her sleep. "Tomorrow, all our dreams come true." The morning of their first anniversary dawned bright and clear. Keisha woke up to find a beautiful red dress laid out on their bed, with a note that read, "Wear this tonight. Love, James." Next to it was a small box containing a pearl necklace. When she came out of the bedroom, James was waiting in the living room, looking handsome in a new suit. Their apartment was filled with roses, and breakfast was already set on the table. "Happy anniversary, my love," James said, pulling her onto his lap for a kiss. "But this is just the beginning." At exactly 6 p.m., a luxury car arrived to pick them up. The driver opened the door, revealing a fully accessible interior. As they drove through the city, Keisha noticed they were heading toward the business district. "James, where are we going?" she asked. "You'll see," he replied, holding her hand tightly. The car stopped in front of a large, modern building. As they entered through automatic doors, Keisha was surprised to see both their families waiting in the lobby, all dressed up and smiling widely. "What's going on?" she whispered to James. Instead of answering, James led everyone into a large conference room. The walls were covered with screens showing the Access Life logo, and there were at least 50 people waiting inside, including reporters and business executives. James wheeled himself to the front of the room, motioning for Keisha to join him. Her heart was beating fast as he took her hand. "1 year ago today," James began, his voice strong and clear, "I married the most amazing woman in the world. Keisha, you saw past my wheelchair and believed in my dreams. Today, I want to share with you, and everyone here, what your love and support has helped create." He pressed a button on his wheelchair, and the screens came to life. They showed videos of people using Access Life technology in their homes, hospitals, and workplaces. Then came the financial figures. The company was worth over $50 million. Keisha's hand flew to her mouth in shock. "James, all this time?" "That's not all," he smiled, pressing another button. The screens changed to show a beautiful building, a state-of-the-art medical facility. "This is the Keisha Taylor Richardson Care Center. It's fully staffed, fully equipped, and ready to open. Your dream of helping underprivileged patients is now a reality." Tears streamed down Keisha's face as James continued. "We've also established the Richardson Foundation for Disability Rights, with a $20 million endowment to help people with disabilities achieve their dreams." The room burst into applause, but James wasn't finished. He pulled out a set of keys. "And this is for our new home. It's fully accessible, with every piece of technology we developed. But more importantly, it's big enough for the family we hope to build together." Keisha could hardly speak through her tears. Their families were crying too, and even some of the reporters were wiping their eyes. "But the biggest surprise," James said, his voice thick with emotion, "is this." He pressed one final button, and the screens showed news headlines. "Access Life goes public. Disability tech company makes history." "The company goes public tomorrow," James explained. "And as my wife and partner, you own half of everything. We're not just millionaires, my love. We're going to change the world together." The room erupted in cheers as Keisha fell into James's arms. "I can't believe you did all this," she whispered. "I did it because you believed in me," he replied. "You never saw limitations, only possibilities. Now we can help others see the same." That night, as they celebrated with their families at their new home, Keisha couldn't stop looking at her husband with pride and love. The man everyone thought would need taking care of had built an empire, all while keeping it secret to surprise her. "You know what makes me happiest?" James said as they watched the sunset from their new balcony. "Not the money or the success, but knowing that together we can make a difference in so many lives." Keisha kissed him softly. "I fell in love with a man in a wheelchair who had big dreams," she said. And today, I love him even more because he never let anything stop those dreams from coming true. As their family celebrated inside, James and Keisha held each other close, knowing that their love story was more than just about romance. It was about breaking barriers, defying expectations, and proving that with love and determination, anything is possible. "Happy anniversary, my love," James whispered. "Here's to making more dreams come true."